Leaders without education create bad habits. Follow me. Let's go. Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching, and this is another episode of the Victory Leaders Lounge podcast. And today I have a guest with me that I see a lot locally, and we get along pretty well. And he decided he wanted to be a guest on my podcast, and I welcome. His name is Michael Mulherin. How you doing, Michael?
Good to see you, JJ. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks.
Sure. And so I'm glad he's here because he recommended a topic for today that's going to be really cool. And I'll tell you what that is in a second. But I want you to know more about Mr. Mulherin because he has a background that is different from mine being in the military. But so many of the things that we discuss are almost the same. So you want to go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Informmics was started one sole purpose, JJ, providing insight for workplace safety. Partner with various people. That includes people that are safety directors, safety coordinators, safety committee members, and give them insights on how to promote safety from where they're at currently, ramp it up a little. Same with fire safety protection for people that work in office buildings, manufacturing facilities, warehouses, even toolbox talks for construction workers, all in an effort to heighten their ability to control their safety needs.
Okay. So Informix is pretty cool. And now that obviously you have a background that makes you passionate about the work you do. Would you be willing to share that with the audience?
Thanks for saying passionate because that is applicable.
I know.
In all sincerity, I want to continue advancing what I wish to get out to people. That being, in the past, I have been involved in training for companies as a corporate trainer. Larger companies that you would recognize the names of the companies. Addition with that, I am a retired captain with a larger fire department in Iowa, and brought it all together for Informix to exist. And I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing.
And I know you do. So I just love the parallels of being a firefighter and leading teams in the fire department and how that compares to being a U.S. Army retiree and all the stuff that we talked about. It's kind of brought us close together, and we always kind of find each other when we see each other somewhere.
I agree. It's in your case, military, paramilitary. In my case,
yes,
the structure, inclusive of incident command and everything, giving insights into logically applying safety as opposed to haphazardly and not monitoring safety, trying to bring safety coordinators to a little higher level.
Yeah, so true. So today we are going to talk about, and again, I did not come up with this topic, but when Michael brought it up, I was like, man, I don't even think I have a section for this in my first time leaders course that's specifically related to it. But we're going to talk about delegation and why that's important when you're in a leadership position. So I'm going to read the definition that comes from Webster's dictionary. I'm not going to look over at my computer. I printed it out. So if you hear paper crumpling, that's what it is. Delegation is commonly defined as the shifting of authority and responsibility for particular functions, tasks, or decision from one person, usually a leader or manager, to another, which is so important if you do not want to lose your mind as a manager.
And I'm going to stick with the safety theme. I would believe that if you were a safety manager, coordinator, and such, you know the strong suits and perhaps the weaknesses of some of your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are their supervisor, you should know how to plug them in and have the confidence to do so, giving them small goals to achieve, baby steps essentially, to make sure that it is attainable for them. In essence, that gives them a chance also to prove themselves to you that they are getting your attention, that you can perform adequately, that they can perform adequately.
So there are a lot of people that struggle with confidence in the workplace, and I think that that's a lot because managers don't trust their people as much as they should. And part of that trust is giving them the opportunity and not just sticking them with the normal tasks that they do, but giving them the opportunity to take on more responsibility and do more things. And I think as a developmental milestone in a lot of people's career, at some point, they need to have that leader in their life who's willing to give them the opportunity to do something that they're not comfortable with or that they haven't done before. So that's really, really important.
It's a valid point. The managers you're speaking of, if it's a safety manager, coordinator, someone had to have confidence in them to bring them up and essentially give them confidence in themselves to proceed upward and to get safety goals in mind. We'll get into delegation. If you don't do it, you should be. And why not?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
If
agree.
there's a lot on your plate, perhaps consider outsourcing, in your case, Victory Leadership and Coaching, my case, Informmics. Bringing in an outside source on occasion can infuse some energy into what you have as your status quo. So don't be challenged or psyched by doing that. Consider it an opportunity to maybe elevate the workplace and your personnel in general.
I agree. So one thing that comes to mind, and this is exactly the same thing we talked about when we were talking on the phone a couple weeks ago, is I preach to a lot of these companies that decentralizing your leadership is so important. And I think you just hit the nail on the head with the comment you just made, because if you can trust your people down from you to make decisions and not micromanage them, it really alleviates a lot of the stress of becoming a leader, even though it's stressful to trust people because you want to micromanage because you lose control. But on the other side of that, if you trust them and they do a good job, then everything that you have to deal with when you're answering all their questions every 5 minutes, or they're constantly coming to you because they're not allowed to make a decision. If
cases,
it happens, well, especially in safety.
Sure. That's insightful. If you think about the fact that if they aren't coming to you for your micromanaging, what else can you accomplish?
Oh my
You
God.
can accomplish a whole plethora of things that you perhaps haven't envisioned that you would be able to get to that end zone. So please keep it in mind, those people, the benefits that can be exacted from knowing who it is you can empower to make sure that you can get the goals done.
So I know we're talking about delegation here, but it seems you talk a lot about strengths and weaknesses. And I think one thing that a lot of leaders fail in, especially in the safety world, because a lot of times you don't necessarily work with your direct supervisor. He's not necessarily in the facility. That guy could work at a corporate headquarters somewhere.
Absolutely, that could be the case. Sure.
Uh, you know, Communication. You need to, if you really want to know how good somebody is at their job and what opportunities they have to improve, you have to really talk to them. You have to if it's remote, you have to monitor their work and talk to them on a regular basis and make sure they understand completely what's going on, not just beat them up over failed safety statistics, because that's what commonly happens that I have seen in the safety world. My last job, before I left to go to Victory Leadership Coaching, I was in an area safety role.
I see.
And I was kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, in the company I was in. And though I had a lot of guidance, it was almost like words were being thrown down my throat because he thought, and I'm not going to say any names, but the management up higher, they just thought they had to do everything themselves, and then the guys that are on the ground, they just do very little with and constantly need your guidance. And I just thought that was absolutely horrible.
One thing you said bounced off of me, very insightful. When you are communicating to personnel that are perhaps, in a higher position you are, ask for clarification early. Do not be a procrastinator. Do not let it compound. Then it will be a bigger obstacle for people. Safety wise, my belief, and I think you would agree with me, at the end of the day, each person that shows up to their workplace, regardless if it's in an office setting, manufacturing, once again, a warehouse, they deserve to head home in the same physical condition that they showed up,
Oh, yeah.
and nothing less. And if you see something, say something. You've got coworkers that deserve the same treatment. Don't walk away. Once again, we'll go back to delegation. That would be not the time. If you see something that has to be immediately corrected, take it upon yourself to at least stand by until that piece of equipment perhaps could be de-energized, whatever the case would be. Uh, Take the initiative.
Yes.
Know what you're empowered to do and when you are able to do so.
So one thing, and I would like to get your insight on this. So oftentimes in manufacturing, trucking, any logistics function,
Sure.
they're the ones who primarily have the safety folks because safety is a consideration for a lot of other business, but you don't necessarily assign somebody to that specific role.
Mhm.
But one thing that I have noticed is operations and safety are two separate entities within a company.
Bingo. And in some cases, people that are in HR, human resources, have to wear the hat
Mhm.
of being a safety director.
Well, everyone's a safety.
Bingo. Everyone should be
Yes.
safety conscientious of all your settings. The people that keep track of near misses that perhaps would result in a OSHA recordable if it went further than that. Repetition of acts that happen that really would reflect on the company's image if they had persons hurt in the workplace and there was a repetition of that. So when it comes down to delegating, keep in mind, follow what it is you wish to have for measurable goals. Make sure that you can plug in the right people. More than likely, they're going to be more than willing to want to step up to bat.
In your opinion, should safety own the entire safety program, or should they constantly be training operations in what they do so that the interaction with safety is constant, but you know, operations knows what to do
Correct?
in every because if you're not there, this is one thing that I've noticed at 6 different warehouses locally over here,
Mhm.
is that oftentimes when something bad happens, operations doesn't know what to do.
Good.
And
Okay.
that's because they think the organization makes it a point to enable safety as being the safety person as the linchpin for the point of contact whenever something happens. Do you look at that as a point of failure, or do you look at that as a point of failure, or a point of success?
My opinion, personally, everybody has to be on the same page and verse. Everything affects everything. When it comes to safety, there's no timeouts. You can't if someone is obviously not complying, you have to be willing to have the difficult conversations with them. If indeed safety policies, standard operating procedures, SOPs aren't followed, that is going to affect virtually everything. And for those persons in operations, once again, they will be impacted on their goals. So when it comes to accountability, virtually everybody is accountable in the workplace. And we didn't know, appeared as an example in the Midwest. I've always had an admiration for emergency response teams within the confines of buildings. I've been fortunate enough to help in that training as such. We didn't know the definition of the word derecho until it occurred.
I'd never heard the
Well,
word.
certainly, and in all sincerity, very, very few of us did. I was retired as a captain by the time that event came to fruition, unfortunately. But the people that can impact do the best. I have to say, keep in mind emergency services, which I used to be involved with. There are only so many people that you can plug in immediately to tend to a lot of emergencies. When you have downed trees, down power lines that are not allowing the progress of emergency vehicles to get to you, whatever you can accomplish in the meantime until they do, by virtue of delegation, once again, know who to say, I'm going to plug you in to do this task, to do this task. And furthermore, do that in advance. Know who should be plugged in first. Don't wait until the event and then waste valuable time thinking, I'm going to select this person or another.
Yeah. Don't be, don't, you will eventually have to get safety involved. But don't make that the only reason why you're not moving forward with getting this person to a hospital, or starting the emergency response plan, or whatever the case may be. That training should be constant, and the entire organization should be ready. Say that safety person calls in sick that day, it shouldn't stop. Everything should keep on going as if that person was right there, present, and able to take care of things immediately.
Correct. Those people that might be gone regardless if it was vacation, sick leave, military leave, funeral leave, you better have an ample person. While they're gone, you need to make sure there's someone competent.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, that is another form of delegation.
Sure.
Just because operations and safety, they aren't they don't have the same people at the top. There's going to be a safety director and there's going to be an operations director, but you know those people, oftentimes I've seen that there's almost a feud between the two because they look at safety as a someone who limits what they're able to do in their operation, when in reality, if you team up and you incorporate the safety programs into everything that's going on, then it's just another consideration.
You'll be way ahead.
Yes.
We all realize that obviously if a safety incident has really produced bad results, a strong incident commander, whoever that person is, he or she that steps forward, has a lot of pressure on themselves. The last thing other personnel at a business want to have are conflicting orders. And someone saying, I need you to do this. They are going to perform that task regardless of what it is, and they're interrupted, and perhaps another supervisor says, yes, stop that. I want you to do something else. Okay. Don't put someone in that position to have to make that decision on who they're going to disappoint. So having a good structure, studies have shown, business models have shown, you can effectively control only X amount of people. Don't supersede that. It's the same thing with controlling territory. in a parking lot or a building. You can't see around the corner and see what's going on. So in essence, you need to have, once again, communication and know who to obviously empower to delegate that to.
Hmm. That's why a decentralized leadership structure is so important, because if everybody is working on something different, but then all the managers come together and they're kind of a separate entity than all the execution level employees,
Correct.
then all you really have to do is put together that calling roster. And when something bad happens, all the managers come together like that. And they are all the decision makers anyway. So in an emergency response plan, because I know it happens that way in operations, but in terms of safety, if it would work the same way, that would be beautiful. But oftentimes it doesn't.
That would be seamless. It would be great. In essence, and also what you're saying, someone has to make a decision. If you have an event, are you going to enlist protection in place, meaning sheltering in place where you're at, or if you're going to have, I love to participate in building evacuations, building evacuation drills. That way, and I like to throw a few curveballs into the process too, for
As you say.
creativity,
Train as you fight.
as opposed, correct, very good, super words, as opposed to the same status quo. Here we go again. We're going to go through the same rinse and repeat cycle of doing the same thing. Uh, People like to have challenges and to, react accordingly and give them a chance. It's once again part of the delegation.
Yes. And communicating that particular part of the mission, why you're doing those drills, is also so important. The one thing I heard you say just now is that some people dread doing these things. But if you can properly communicate to your people on why that's important, and why why you're doing the same thing over and over again, well, they're just going to think it's annoying if they don't know why they're doing it. And oftentimes there's a communication barrier that's stopping them from understanding that. But if you communicate to not just the operations managers, but to make sure they're communicating the same thing to their people, then those drills are going to go a lot more seamlessly. And man, that's a shame that people would have it that way. I mean, when I was a young soldier, I was that way. I'd be like, oh my gosh, we're doing another one of these stupid drills again. But as I started gaining rank, I realized that it was because my supervisors weren't communicating the why properly. So that's a shame that it happens that way so much.
What the end goal actually is, uh, for those people that work in an office building, there's a world of difference between a single story office building versus a multi-story office complex when it comes down to, once again, safety regarding fire safety. How that fire is going to proliferate. Studies have shown if you're amply trained on using a fire extinguisher as opposed to uh, not knowing where you're shooting the contents of an extinguisher, wasting the valuable contents and the time. And additionally, if you're going to delegate to someone, I'm grabbing this extinguisher in the meantime, hopefully located within 75 feet maximum, another fire extinguisher, you grab that one. You don't want to ever allow your egress point, your exit, to be challenged. So you have to know where the cool, calm heads prevail that can do that, as opposed to, not performing adequately. So delegation is such a wide span of things. Don't be concerned that you're giving away all of your authority. That's not the case. Your career might flourish considerably if you consider an outsource such as what you do. Bring that person in, give them an opportunity uh, to increase what you've got going on at work for your goals. It's real simple.
Not only that, but if you the word that comes to mind again is trust. If you relinquish some of that responsibility off yourself and you trust other people, chances are the likelihood of you dying at a young age because you're trying to take on everything by yourself, it's going to be it's going to be a lot more likely that the stress level of the job, not just for you but for everybody, is going to be a lot lower.
Correct. When we talked about leaders, and I apprised you of this before we started here, I had written this down just very, very recently. Yes, you're going to see me look down and read it, but in all actuality, uh, please give it some consideration. Sometimes leaders lead, sometimes leaders follow, right? They follow if they have put in place the correct pathway to attain measurable goals, then they follow the progress. So give the opportunity for perhaps an outside source or someone else to give you a pathway as well, and to increase your success possibilities. So that is something I just wrote down recently.
Yes. Well, you have to lead your people. And a lot of people think that just means that you're given a title or a position that, you have people reporting to you, and that's what leading is, and that's not. There's a distinct difference between managing and leading. Leaders, really get their people to buy into the mission.
Buy-in is a perfect way to put it. Correct.
They buy in, and when they buy in, then they do the job not because they're being told to. They're doing the job because they know it has to be done. And that does something to an execution level employee, or even if you're a down trace manager, that does something with your mindset. And you kind of go from I have to show up to work every day to I get to show up to work every day.
You're looking for opportunities to increase what will happen positively.
Yes.
Work, as opposed to, once again, as you said, dreading showing up, just trying to dance around the issues and not engage with the difficult things that, in my case, safety related. Obviously, in your case, leadership, coaching. So blending them both together can happen.
Yes.
If people really wish to try to advance what they're currently at and leave behind their status quo.
The idea behind being a leader is that you are serving your people, which means you are always making sure they have what they need, and you're giving them opportunity to fulfill their goals in the workplace, not just your agenda. And and that's not just with your execution level employees. If you're seeing what your peers need, and trying to fit you and your team into that picture, and then also all constantly talking to your boss. We talked about this earlier.
Correct.
If you're constantly talking to your boss and making sure that you're providing everything he needs, because by the way, he reports to somebody too,
obviously. Correct.
And so if you are making his job easier by making sure you're providing everything you and your team can provide to him on a regular basis, then what you just did, because you can lead laterally, senior to you and below you, is that you just created a cohesive work environment in the sphere of influence that you have directly. And as a safety person, that's important because literally nobody you work with reports to you.
Think of there are many varied publications. They have a topic on occasion they will publish. Best places to work. Okay. Word gets out regarding, and particularly if that's in your community or in your, part of your state, think of the great company image that you get from that if you have strong leaders, once again, that wish to empower their people. You're providing a safe environment for them, and a lot of people might wish to sign on different levels and perhaps leave where they're at if they feel that it's going to stay that way indefinitely.
I'm going to lean forward into my phone here and check the time, and we are right at almost 30 minutes. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I thought it was a great conversation today.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh my gosh, the opportunity was all mine. I got to have you on here with me. And by the way, this is new. Normally, I interview people through a computer, so you're
This is a first for you, and it's a win-win.
yes, it is. So I'm outside of my comfort zone a little bit today, which is always good because I like to be uncomfortable. What do they say? Comfort is the enemy of success.
Bingo.
So
And if you stick in that same mindset and you're not willing to maybe step out of your current status quo, then who else do you have to blame for that?
I agree.
So
So today we talked about, well, a lot of things, but every single one of you in the audience have listened to my podcast, probably other leadership podcasts or read leadership books. And when you have a specific subject, it literally goes into all of the principles of leadership by the time you get back down to it. So delegation is what we talked about today, among other things. But I thought it went well. Michael, is there anything else that you would like to say to the group in closing comments?
I think today's topic is very important. Uh, Please consider many of the insightful things that JJ brought up. And I look forward to perhaps coming back again. So that will be my final comment.
And I think that would be great. And I will say, Michael Mulherin, Informmics is his business, and that is spelled INFORMMICS. And that is informix.com. If you want to go to his website, fill out his contact form, and talk to this fine gentleman over here. But I feel like safety is important, leadership is important, and getting help with that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a weakness. What it really means is that if you outsource somebody to come in and help you, is that you are willing to take your already excellent skills and become a champion. So this is JJ Hardy and Michael from Informix. Have a good day, and thank you for tuning into my podcast.